Hello and welcome again to another edition of the Capcom Confidential podcast. I'm your host, Pete Fabiano, and as always, I'd like to open by saying thank you, everyone, for listening. Please continue to subscribe. For those of you that haven't, any new listeners out there, or anyone that likes what we do. Also, we are now doing live streaming videos as well. So if you can, go out and find Capcom Confidential on YouTube. We just did one last week, and hopefully you guys like what you're hearing or seeing, and we can continue to do so. Again, it's very, very important that you subscribe because it justifies us doing this, and we like doing it, and we hope you guys like what we're doing. So please present us with all your feedback and anything you can moving forward. Unfortunately, today we do not have Mr. Matt Walker. He is out at PAX during this recording, and he just finished up with a pretty fun pizza party from what I'm hearing, which is pretty cool. But in his stead, I have a couple of people that you have heard from before, but are gracious enough to join us again today. From our live stream last week, we have to my left, and you can't see that right now, Mr. Luca Baldassarre. Why don't you,
Hello, everyone. This is Luca, as Pete said, Luca Baldassarre, Italian. I'm working at Capcom as an Italian localizer. And it's been a couple of years working here, actually.
And we'll go into your story a little bit
later.
But we also have a fan favorite, so I hear, Mr. Go ahead, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Miguel Corti, and I'm happy to be invited back after the first podcast. I wasn't sure if I would get an invite back.
Your chair was the problem.
My
right?
chair, yeah, I'm never sitting on that chair again.
The chair is actually here with us. It's a silent guest.
And I think this will be better because I feel more comfortable because Matt won't be staring at my body the whole time.
I can do it if you want.
No, I'd rather have a nice conversation.
Maybe that Matt keeps talking about wanting to do a special visual podcast where we show off the men of Capcom. We'll see how that goes. Maybe get some feedback on that.
Capcom?
Magic Mike. We do have a mic.
We do have
and your
Mike.
name is technically Mike.
Yes. Yeah, I think that'll require some planning and some checks with higher ups.
Yeah, potentially. So we'll keep it tasteful.
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 Yeah.
So today what we'd like to do, as always, is get into Luca's story, or at least a story of one of our devs, someone who's working here and has been here for a little while. And we didn't get that much time to really get into your story on the live stream. And for those people who didn't get a chance to watch, I think this is a good opportunity to get into how you got here into Capcom. And I guess my catchphrase is now, what's your deal?
What's the deal?
Wow.
That's being
After 6 episodes, you got to have a catchphrase.
This is episode 7.
Oh, because of the 0 episode.
No, this is 7 including 0. Oh, so it's 8, not including.
Sorry. Yeah, because I was on the on business trip, so I missed
the
live stream.
One.
So yeah, I have to go back.
Numbering can be confusing.
You can start with the catchphrase now. You can start the episode.
So why don't we go ahead and start? So where did you grow up? Where were you born?
Sure. In Italy, born and grew up in Pescara, which is a really, really small town along the Adriatic Sea in the south of Italy. And living there, and then I studied Japanese at the university.
Whoa, that's a big jump.
A little bit. So you want to know more?
Studying Japanese.
Wow, smarter than Doogie Howser, straight from the womb.
I wanted to avoid my youth.
So okay, you grew up in. Was it?
You said
it's a rural town. Was it was it neighboring the ocean, or was it landlocked?
It's close to the sea, to the Adriatic Sea. For Japan, I guess, in US, it's pretty small town because it's 15,000 inhabitants. So there are not that many. It's really easy to live there because you have the beach, and from my house, you just cross the street and go to the beach basically, and you have the sea, and you have the mountain close because it's in the region called Abruzzo. which is the majority of the part is countryside and mountains basically, and there's also the beach on the coast. So actually there's no much stuff to see. Actually, we don't have that many tourists actually in my region, but it's a good place like if you want to enjoy nature and landscapes basically. So it doesn't have like that popularity abroad like it could be Rome or Bologna or other town. It's a great part if you want to enjoy nature and food, especially food. We have lots of wine, olive oil, and it's a really nice.
I'm smiling
nice
right
part.
now.
Yeah.
But so
That's
is
what
there
I
a lot
miss
of
more.
what I'm understanding in Italy and actually in Europe right now, agricultural tourism is fairly popular.
Yeah.
You know, where you spend some time on a farm or some sort of ranch,
Yeah.
and you get to eat the food and travel throughout the countryside. Is
Yeah.
that something that's popular in your region?
Yeah, in my region too. Actually, we have a lot. We call in Italian like agriturismi, which
Right.
basically which,
Agricultural tourism.
Yeah, agricultural tourism, which basically you can stay there and the majority is like farmer who readapted their house and now for tourists. So and they basically they give the tourists the chance to like sleep there a few nights, enjoy the food, like travel in the countryside and see the small. We have lots of in the countryside, lots of towns that there are from the medieval period. So
wow.
we have lots of castles as well. In my region, so you can also go enjoy the sightseeing.
So that's now, but when you were growing up, what would you say most people did? Like, you grew up, you were raised there, I should say. Do most people leave to go to the city, or do they stay in town and become farmers, or how does that work?
No, the thing is that when I grew up there in my hometown, which is actually you can call a city, but basically because it's the biggest town around in my region in Abruzzo, and there were still. But the city and the countryside in that part of it, because they are really close, it's like you can go like with 30 minutes to the countryside. So they are really connect. So but in the recent years, while I was growing there were lots of people from the countryside that go to the city center to open new business. And
do you have a university there? Do people study
we have
there?
a university there. Is not that big. But is called the Gabriele D'Annunzio, like the poet, university, because he is from my hometown.
Oh, okay.
So
that'll explain it.
Yeah, that's why. That's the only thing. And we have a really good medicine faculty in the university.
Okay.
Pharmacy and medic.
Oh, okay.
So like school of medic.
Medicine.
School medicine, and it's a good hospital as well. So it's pretty famous for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially in the south of Italy, we have lots of people that comes from like the south of Italy, even from Puglia, Calabria, and the region from the south to come to study medicine in my region too.
Mm-hmm. So how does one?
But we don't have Oriental languages, so that's why I went to study. I couldn't study Japanese in my hometown.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. How does one go from living in such an idyllic location where it's kind of got this lush history, these old customs, and then want to study Japanese? How did that even become something on your radar?
Well, technically, I've always been considered that also from my friends. Like, I'm being kind of weird. No, I started becoming interested in the Japanese culture through, I guess, as many as the other people that are here, through manga and anime when I was a kid. But on the contrary, that many friends of mine that just was watching anime just for entertainment, I was more interested into the society and as well the culture that it was shown in the cartoon, in the animes, or in the comics as well.
So to clarify, from my understanding, having traveled to Italy a number of times in my youth, a lot of what I saw on television was not just your typical Dragon Ball. It was also like you had ones, you had manga or anime that tackled like European history or books or stories, and you probably had some of the ones that kind of showed off a bit of Japanese culture.
Yes.
What are the ones that kind of stood out for you? Because you talked about culture. You obviously didn't get the culture 100% from Dragon Ball.
Yeah, no, you cannot. You cannot
I mean, you
see
can,
it
but it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, you knew the world in Dragon Ball was fake.
Yeah.
Really?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. No.
Sorry to burst your bubble.
So I was interested as I said actually also in the live cast, in the live video, that when I was a kid I was really interested is a manga called City Hunter, which is pre-80s, so it's pretty old, and was one of my favorite actually. And in that one is because it's modern, so it's set in the 80s and early 90s Tokyo. And I was fascinated in how it was showed it showed the town itself, which is totally different from, especially for the point of view of a kid that is growing in this such a small town, and I was kind of fascinating from that, and also because there were at the same time in the anime was shown all the signs that they are written in Japanese, so it's a writing method that is totally different from what we have. And I started getting interested into the writing systems. I say, what does it mean? What is written here? I want to understand what it was written there.
Mm-hmm.
And
at what age did you start? When did this interest spark?
I was 11 years
okay.
old, around 11 years old. Yeah. And
old enough to know Dragon Ball was fake. But
I started watching Dragon Ball later.
Oh, okay.
First city.
Yeah. So, and also as well because in the there were also some other anime that I was watching that was show more of a traditional Japanese, which is, of course, it was an anime, so it's a fiction, of course, Ranma, how you call it in English?
Ranma 1.5.
Ranma 1.5, okay. That was a little bit short, in a fantasy way, but it was still watching some Japanese tradition, even Inuyasha, which is an anime which is really popular with yokai, which is basically demon Japanese folklore stories. And then at the same time as I grew, I became fond of also Japanese history and tradition as well, because it's a word that is totally different from our society actually, which is closer.
Yeah, I think Ranma is actually a good introduction to Japanese society, because there are things I didn't even get when I watched it. I was probably in college at that time, a little older than you, so things.
A little
We're
bit
doing things
different.
on a different timeline, but
exactly 10 years.
Exactly 10 years. We have the same birthday, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Same
so we're
birthday,
actually 10 years apart. But because Ranma 1.5, the whole conceit that he gets hit with water, he turns into a girl.
Yes.
He needs warm water to turn back.
Yes.
And just the fact that, especially post-World War II, for a long time in Japan, just boiling water was a big deal in Japanese houses. And that you would have the bathtub and it would be filled with hot water. And usually the father gets to soak in it first. And then the youngest person gets to go in at the end. So it's not like they're just turning on a hot water faucet at any time of the day to get hot water. And that kind of stuff was cool, but you kind of pick up parts of the culture.
But it's a cultural thing anyway.
Yeah, and then the one character in English is called upperclassman Kuno.
I don't remember.
Kuno,
right? But the
from
English translation, they always called him upperclassman. I thought that's kind of weird, and then I realized in Japanese he was senpai, which means someone who's
older
in a higher,
than you,
older than you, and for us, Pete's 2 years older than me, and we were just friends in college, and it's just no big deal. It's just not.
He didn't call me senpai. I didn't call him kohai.
He didn't have to buy me lunch at the cafeteria and stuff like that because he's looking out for me, kind of thing. But that is a thing in Japan, and the way the other students treat Kuno because he's a grade or two above him. Yeah, that was pretty. I found it weird, but I guess that was an introduction to the
culture itself. Especially you have many anime and manga which are set in the school.
Oh, right.
Especially the sports one. One of my favorites is Slam Dunk.
Slam Dunk.
I guess Miguel likes too.
Yeah.
And you see, the difference in senpai. There were some people that were from the first year. They were struck sometimes. They need to pay respect to the older one, but actually it's the same. It's in Italy with people. I was hanging out with the older people from I was in the first grade. I was hanging out with people in the third grade. It was totally like the same. So also that, as Miguel rightly said, it was totally a fascinating point.
Yeah, you can find some parallels. I mean, when we were going to school, I don't know what it's like now, but when we go to school, obviously as a freshman, you're scared to be in high school, right? It's new, everything's fresh, and then there are the seniors who are the veterans of the school, and you kind of look up to them and you want to be like them because they're older, and sometimes you get hazed or bullied or whatnot, and that was just kind of part of the culture as we were growing up. I imagine it's a similar dynamic now, but things have changed, it seems, so I'm not sure, but there are some parallels, but it's very different in the sense that they didn't look out for us, so to speak, unless you found a friend that was that an older upperclassman, and there's still cliques and whatnot, but it's different that it's a real major part of the way things are done. Right?
Yeah, one thing I didn't get about those high school manga and anime is that the clubs, like the basketball team, they were so into it, but they do it for the entire year.
Yes.
Right? Which is weird because in college and high school in America, you can be in a number of different clubs, and the sports clubs usually are seasonal as well. Right. So, but here the baseball team practices baseball year round. Basketball team practices basketball year round. I'm like, so you have to choose one,
right,
and hope you like it and good at
because
otherwise, man, you don't have any time for anything else.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, it was because in the US you have clubs for the school. We don't have in Italy at all. So for me, it was even more weird because I saw all these people, and I thought it was, at the beginning, because we have 2 hours per week that is basically physical education, and I thought it was like that.
Gym.
And I thought it was, but these people have in Japan, they have every day or what? I was thinking.
So you don't have let's say a drama club, or you don't have kind of extracurricular activities where you go after school and
I don't know actually how it is now,
right?
But
you're not that old,
but but it's been almost 15 years almost that I left, but no, we didn't have. I mean, we had extracurricular activities, but there were not that many, and we had sometimes that you could go for example, what we have, you see movies in the afternoon and in the school, and how is it? We call it cineforum.
Of course, you're Italian.
Yeah.
So you guys
go there
and filmography and all that sort of stuff.
But there were not that often, and there are not that many people who actually participate to there. Okay. So when we do if you want to go to play basketball, for example, you go to a private school, the basketball basically, they have a team.
So you have to pay.
Yeah, you have to pay
to participate in
a
sport.
Yes. You want to do tennis, but you have to pay the inscription. It's like going to the gym. You pay the inscription. There's an instructor that teaches you how to play. And then that's why for me it was what are these guys doing basically, why they are in the school the whole day basically.
So that's interesting. You learned this full background, you found your interest in Japan via manga and anime, let's say. So then what happens? You're 11 years old, you're like, okay, this is really cool stuff, I want to know more about it. How do you pursue education in that field in Italy, in a small town where
you have to do by yourself basically. So I mean, not in the middle school, but starting from 15 years old, I started to read more and about Japan itself, so about Japanese history and society, also with some because I didn't have I mean, I had the internet at that time, but it was super slow, and it costed a lot of money, and I couldn't afford at the beginning. So I have like 2 hours per internet per week.
So you know what this
limited
noise
by
is?
my parents.
Do you know that?
Oh yes.
Okay, so
if you know that sound,
we know what age you're at.
Yeah, you know the
For
age.
those listeners out there that don't know what that is, that's something called dial-up.
Yeah, it was 50K modem.
56K or something like that.
Yeah, 56.
Yeah, it's like it's slower than a 3G network on a subway.
Yeah.
Like
Now.
It's a
And you were
reference.
waiting
they probably get that.
You were listening to music, do other stuff while the page was loading.
The one page.
Yeah. So the only channel was like magazines I could find around, and like in the library some books that were published, but not that many actually. So since I started watch also movies. I got interested into Japanese movies. Like I was. At first, I mean, it kind of sounds a cliche, but I started interested in Kurosawa also because he made many movies about Japanese history.
Right.
It was like even Ran, Rashomon. So all of this stuff. And at 17, I decided I was also doing martial arts, doing jiu-jitsu a little bit. So, and then my teacher lived in Japan, so we talked a lot with him, and the name of all the techniques were in Japanese, so we have to memorize those.
Right.
And then it reached the point that at 17 years old, I started also to learn Japanese a little bit by myself. Before,
how'd you learn it by yourself?
I basically just bought a dictionary.
Okay.
And
an Italian Japanese
Italian-Japanese dictionary, a grammar book.
Wait a minute, I got to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Where did English come from? Because that just
English.
Yeah.
And actually, I never lived. I mean, the only place I lived abroad was Japan. So I never lived in England, UK, even for 1 month.
Right. So how did you learn English?
So English, I started studying since I was like 10 years old, a little bit, and
on your own.
No, that one does not. Okay, so the thing is, I started doing because my family really wanted me to learn English a lot.
Okay. So you had encouragement from your parents.
Yes. And since at school in Italy, when I was a kid, the hours of English, there weren't that many.
Right.
So together with a close friend, we started doing like private lessons. We started taking private lessons from an English teacher for like 4 years, a little bit. But then I always been interested in languages as well. So I started learning English doing that, and watching movies in English, and as well translating songs because I was like I was buying some magazines with all the lyrics from the songs that I liked, and I started translating that, showed to the teacher, and how it was. So it was just 1 hour per week, basically, that I was doing, like, taking English lessons. But since I was doing also lots by myself, and I was really interested into it, I started practicing and learning English, basically. And then, but English is easier because it's closer to Italian.
Right.
There's a lot of commonalities.
Yeah.
Even also just phrases and whatnot.
Phrases, grammar-wise. So it requires less training, actually, less study, of course.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So okay, you had the English base. Now what'd you say? You were 17, you wanted to start Japanese?
Yeah, 17, 18. Started, so I said, bought the dictionary and the grammar books, and started to do some small exercises and learn just the hiragana and the katakana.
And what was your end goal? You're like, I'm just going to study Japanese. It's cool.
I like it. So I just wanted to do. And just like the last year of high school, I decided, okay, I like it enough because I want to learn this language. I want to be able to talk to this language, to speak this language, and I want to find a job I want to work in the future with this language.
Right.
So, and I decided to go to the university to study Japanese, basically.
So you majored in Japanese?
Yes.
Was it just a sole Japanese major? Did you double major?
Is a double major is Japanese history and language plus Japanese English culture, because I kept studying English anyway at the university.
And English culture meaning British
culture. Yeah, because actually we separate, because we have a British and American literature. Right. But I went for the British literature and culture.
Miguel, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, well,
starting doing my monologue.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, America, we fought 2 wars, so we wouldn't have to read British literature. No, but. Actually, the War of 1812 was because they kept forcing our people to join their navy. So
that's true.
It had nothing to do with books, actually.
Something that you don't learn.
Somebody wrote a manifesto somewhere.
But yeah, so then you wound up here.
Yeah. And I'm super glad that I ended up here.
So you went to do an exchange program here, or did you go to university proper in Japan?
I went to the university in Tokyo for 6 months for an exchange student.
Just to clarify, a university in Tokyo, not Tokyo University.
No, not Tokyo University. It was called Sophia University.
Sophia, they're pretty well known for their literature programs.
Yes, it's an exchange programs. It's a really good university, and I did 6 months. 6 months there.
Okay.
And
sounds like prison time.
Happy sent 6 months there. Actually, it was,
and I liked it so much I wanted to stay.
Actually, it should have been for 1 year, but it was the year of the earthquake in Japan.
The 2011 earthquake.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We've been here for a few.
You were already there.
Not in 1990.
No, not 95. No, 95.
I came 3 days after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you were in Osaka? Or?
I did my exchange program. Yeah, 3 days after that. I called to make sure everyone was okay, and they said no, please come. And it was pretty devastating. We went to do some volunteer stuff and whatnot, but that's my story. So let's go back to
we will talk a bit one day. Actually, with the university made us to come back. So I went back to Italy, degree, and took the major degree, and then I started the bachelor degree, and then I started the master degree. And after finish that, I came back.
The master's also in Japanese?
Yes, also in Japanese. And I came back to Osaka, but by myself to study another 6 months.
Why Osaka? Because you had spent time in Tokyo. It only makes sense.
Two reasons. I had friends in Osaka. I had closer friends in Osaka. And first. And second, actually, I liked Tokyo as a student, but I thought it's not a place that actually, because I went to Osaka for a few days, and I liked it more here. I found it Osaka closer, to what I want to lead a life.
Why is that?
Because Tokyo is too chaotic for me.
Too chaotic. Yeah. In what way? There's just too many people.
Too many
bright lights.
Bright lights is still Osaka as well. But,
trains are crowded all hours of the day.
Yes, and even in the weekend, Tokyo is super crowded.
I live 2 stations from Shibuya, and the last train. Did you ever ride the last train?
Yeah, I did once to try it. I tried visiting you a couple times, and it didn't matter what time of day I rode that train. It was always like rush hour. There was never. And I'm visiting with a suitcase. I'm like, I can't even get in myself. I won't bring the suitcase.
Any line you pick.
But the last train is a special gift because I know some people have seen online people getting shoved in, and that really happens.
Yeah.
The last train, I one time was shoved in so hard I could not move my body. I was just floating. I wasn't even standing because I was lifted off the ground. It's just crazy.
Because when the train brakes, you don't even move because you're so packed. You don't have the inertia. Yeah. So, and even sorry for the people, but the Tokyo. But I found people here in Osaka. Maybe because I'm Italian, I don't know. I feel closer to them. They are more.
I think it's safe to say that there's more of a sense of community in Osaka, or even that's going away now. I feel personally compared to when we first got here, but because a lot of people from Osaka are actually from Osaka. They were born here. They've been here a long time. Whereas Tokyo is a large city, so it's got people from all over the country.
Yeah, a lot of transplants from all over Japan.
So. Yeah, basically.
And it's the headquarters of everything in Japan, right? The financial capital, the entertainment capital, except for us, of course, because we're here. Yeah. So, but I get what you're saying. I liked Tokyo as a city personally.
Yeah,
but
as a city,
the city itself is great, but for to live, was not that much.
And no offense to Edoko, because I think people in Tokyo who have been there a long time are awesome, and there's a lot of good people out there too.
Yeah. So it was a good period as well. But since I came here to almost 2 years, I also like here because it's closer to Kyoto.
Right, you can visit quite easily. Nara as well. Yeah, a lot of historical capitals and
you have lots of historical places here that you can visit like in almost less than 1 hour with the train.
Right.
So
it's a good hub.
Yes. You have
and
lots
even
of
Tokyo,
nature.
It's only 2.5 hours away if you really want to go.
Yeah, if you take the bullet train,
right.
It's super. It's still fine to go.
Yeah. And the bullet train's great.
Yeah. It's a sweet ride.
Some stuff that we in Italy we only dreamed about.
You'd design it really well, though. It'd be super cool looking.
Yeah. But the design is still okay. Actually,
you need an Italian to design it, right?
Yeah. But
okay, so you finished your master's.
Yes.
And you've got a degree in Japanese.
Yes.
And now you're like, what the hell am I going to do?
And then what the hell am I going to do? So it took like, after I joined the company, since I got the degree was like lasted 4 years. So in those 4 years, I always tried to find a job that could use Japanese.
Right. In
Italy. Yeah. That was the ideal at first. But it was really, really difficult. So I kept doing like temporary jobs and also, for the economic situation of Italy, and it was tough as well. And so it was like keeping doing job in 6 months and 6 months. And
what's the unemployment rate now? Like, especially for the youth. I know in Spain at one point it was almost 50%.
Yes. I think around youth now this year recently dropped to 36 or 37. In 36. 2 years ago was youth. So by youth means that from 16 to 25,
right.
30.
Yeah.
When I came here, it was around 40.
40.
Yeah, the youth. Yeah.
And you're still the number 8 economy in the world.
I don't know why. Don't ask me why. So it was. Now it looks like it's going better a little bit, but it was tough. But I always saw. I always try to find, as I said, find a job in Japanese using the Japanese language, and I started also working at freelance as well. And
what were you doing freelance?
I was translating like a article from Japanese for small web articles and manga. I was started translating also manga for a brief period of time. Actually, just before that, I arrived here. And I worked also in Milan Expo for the Japanese pavilion. And it was a really, really good experience there. That helped a lot because working all the time with Japanese for 6 months, only around Japanese people, it was a pretty intense experience because the way I understood how Japanese people work.
So the manga and the anime didn't prepare you for work in Japan.
No. Not at all. You only know how Japanese works like if you work with it.
I think it's an interesting point. Miguel can probably speak to this as well. But when you come here as a student, it's almost like a fantasy world.
Yes.
Because everyone will go out of their way to help you, to treat you well. And it's that whole, what's the word? Omotenashi. It's the whole hospitality, the Japanese renowned hospitality where everyone's trying. I mean, I was lost at a station once and this nice old woman, I could barely speak Japanese, grabbed me by the hand and basically led me to where I needed to go. I mean, who does that, right? It was so wonderful. But then you work here and it's trial by fire.
Yeah. People suddenly change.
And we're not talking about Capcom. I mean Japan.
Generic.
Working's a completely different animal.
I guess Miguel knows more than me. But I was kind of one thing you hear about overtime, but one thing is actually you actually, because they are not overtime that we think Like, okay, in Italy, overtime when we work is 1 hour or 2 hours overtime.
Right.
But when I was working in Milan, it was like 11 hours per day. And it was, okay, this is Japanese overtime.
Well, luckily, I think we've struck a pretty good balance here.
But here, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, honestly speaking, I was a little bit scared at the beginning before joining it, because that was my latest experience.
Right.
But here I found it that is really the work life is really well.
I mean, when there's work to be done, you stay and do it.
Yeah,
but
of
otherwise,
course,
it's
of
not
course.
like
But it's not necessary that you have to stay even if you don't have nothing to do, right?
Yeah. Even for the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
It's not just Japanese companies. Game companies in general are renowned for overtime, especially crunch time and things like that. It just comes down to scheduling. Like I do see people here late a lot, but I know a lot of those issues are because of bad scheduling. But I mean, some things are just unforeseen problems, and also being a creative endeavor, sometimes what you want to do in a game changes as you're making it.
Sure.
But the deadline for getting it out the door does not change. So,
and also here we work with overseas branches quite often, so we'll have to be
time
on,
difference.
with the time difference, we'll have to be ready in the morning for North America and then ready at night for Europe. So there's a lot that we need to take into consideration. Sometimes things can't be avoided, but we do try to strike a balance, right? And sometimes you just want to get stuff done and you do it on your own.
But it's still okay. It's still doable for sure.
So you had worked for a Japanese team, let's say, while in Italy. Had you worked for a Japanese company in Japan?
This is the first. This is the first time. Yeah.
So how did that happen?
So I took the decision. Okay, I want to try to work in Japan, despite my experience with.
But so you said despite your experience, but I imagine it must have been fairly positive.
Yes. So as you say, it was tough,
right?
It was super tough, but it was a nice experience at the same time. So if you say it was a good experience, so I say, okay, let's try to work in Japan, because I like the Japanese people, the way they work. I mean, as my experience, I like the thing that they really team up and focus for a common profit. So a common point, right? a common goal. So that's one thing that I really liked about it.
Right.
So that is not that common in Italy. And so I say, okay, I want to try to do this experience. I want to keep to use Japanese, of course, and work in translation. And I like video games. So I started.
So all those things come together.
Yeah. I mean, it's true when I said it was really when I found the announced that Capcom was looking for an Italian translator.
Right.
It was a really good luck sign, because I looked at the right moment. Like it was the right moment to look for.
So was Capcom the only company you applied to?
Was not the only one.
What?
But it was the one that I liked since I was a kid.
Right.
So it was one of the. Can I say another name of another? I mean,
that's up to you. It's personal information.
No. There's two companies that I really liked since I was a kid. One was Capcom and Nintendo.
Right.
So,
okay.
There was the two companies the two Japanese company that I really enjoyed the games since I was a kid, from the Famicom period.
Right.
So so I decided I found that and I decided to apply for that.
Nice.
And after it was like how many? 3 interviews?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
3 interviews, translating test. I got an email. Okay, we would like that the next month you come to Japan. I said, what? Next month? Wait. So
we all know that it takes longer to get a visa.
Yes. It was totally unexpected. I mean, I was praying for that. I was really hoping for that.
Right.
But it was totally unexpected, actually. Because it was like when I applied, I said, okay, I want to do that, but they will never take me.
Right.
It's always like that. So it was, and I started. So I came here to June 2016.
Right.
And here you are, now working on Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that. Actually, I said that during the video that. I mean, that is one of. I was talking with my parents sometimes as well. I still can't believe that I'm working on one games that I was playing as I was a kid.
So this is the perfect opportunity to actually segue into the discussion point I really wanted to get into outside of your story. Sure. And that's actually is looking at kind of narrative, mocap, voice in games. And Miguel has a lot of experience in this field, and I do as well. And your take on it as well, because what happens on the Japanese and English side really affects what's going to happen on the FIG side, and in your case, Italian. So maybe, Miguel, if you can start with your ideas as to how to approach narrative, especially when it's something that's actually being built in Japan. You know, there are different takes on it. Like what we did with our Resident Evil 7 is very different, right? Because we originally wrote that in English. It's the first time we actually had gone about doing something in that direction, or in that with that style, that those pipelines that we actually helped to put in place. But then you have other titles, like let's say Revelations 2, or some of the other titles that we've worked on. So what's your take on that whole thing?
Well, if you're Capcom, the way you do it is first you make a game, then you decide to write a script. That's I mean, no, it's not always the way. The problem is games take a long time to make, and so writing a script is actually probably the shortest
in terms of
time needed to write a script. It takes a long process because the game is being made through the course of a year. So you might write a script for material you have ready by March, but they don't know what's going to happen in chapters 3, 4, and 5 of the game, like what the level design is going to be, what characters are going to be there, what boss fights you'll have, what mission quests you'll have. So that script, the duties on script writing will pause while that stuff gets figured out.
So let me clarify here. When you say script, are you talking solely about dialogue, or are you talking about how to build out the scene? Are you talking about how things play out? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, to me, traditionally,
obviously we're talking to you because everyone has different takes on things.
Yeah, when I think of the script, I think of what happens in a scene, and usually by that I mean cutscenes, in-game voices, all that sort of stuff. But for Capcom, that's not the only part of the script. So they refer to the stuff that happens in game that's not necessarily voiced by an actor or something like that as the scenario.
Right.
So
that's our internal term.
Yeah, we call it the scenario, which is probably a good term because for a Hollywood script, the scenario is the script.
Yes.
Like you can't separate it. But for us, you can have whole sections of a game where you might have voices like the player character reacting to things in the game, but they want to figure out what happens, what types of enemies attack you, what kind of challenges present themselves to the player, how does the player solve that, just even things, what they call them here internally gimmicks, but that's commonly known as puzzles for the Resident Evil world. But even something like turning on the power in like a train station, to them, they call that a gimmick. So they want to figure out where that comes into play. And so they're trying to figure that out. And then they'll try to write a scene around that later. They're like, okay, we think we want to challenge the player by having them turn on the power here because the power's out. And then they have to fight enemies. Maybe they find a new weapon once they get there. But then they figure out, well, what's the story behind that? Why is that? Why do they have to turn out the power? Oh, well, there was an explosion before it knocked out the generator. They figure that out. Who do you talk to find out that information? Let's bring in the police officer from chapter 1. Maybe he can give you that information. So it's organic. There's a lot of spitballing because I think a lot of what games, they're just trying to figure out what works, what's more interesting for the player, what do you want to see? And then you get to write a script. And then once you're writing a script with dialogue for cutscenes and stuff like that, you almost take a step back from the game and you enter that world. And it really feels like you're making a movie at that point. But at the same time, the dev team is still building out their levels and their designs and things like that. And changes there will affect your script. So if, for example, saying something like Resident Evil 2, soon to be released. Well, not that soon, but sooner than later. January. But something like Claire, they might say, oh, we actually don't want her to have the gun at this point. So you can't have that cutscene where the police officer gives her the gun.
Yes.
So then we have to make changes to that script to reflect what's going to happen in gameplay. And sometimes vice versa, but it's more usually the gameplay is impacting the script. So I don't want to say it's secondary because that puts value on it where I don't think you can do that with games because it all goes to making the game. So to say one thing is more valuable is not.
Well, isn't that the whole importance of having the person who's helping to drive the narrative, whether it be the localization director or whether it be a scenario director or whoever it is, actually sit there with the team and really communicate daily as to what is happening and where the balance is. Because in general, right, it's going to be consensus. At the same time, the director has final say, but there are people who always have input. So with all that, you have to decide, okay, what makes the most sense? You can give your feedback. Someone on the level design side is going to give their feedback. Someone who's looking over just some of the design is going to give their feedback. So yeah, there are so many pieces to the puzzle, I think. And, to expand on that and to confuse everyone even further, it also depends on the title and the team, right?
Right. I mean, on some of the script writing sessions I've sat in on, it's like they'll have a script writer, they'll have the game director, they'll have the art lead, they'll have the animation director, cinematics director. They'll have someone like me who's in charge of localization or culturalization as they have it, or just general script stuff as well. And we're all trying to give feedback. So if the person's like, okay, then we're going to have Claire pick up a rocket launcher. Then the art director's like, yeah, we don't have any assets for rocket launchers yet. So we'd have to make one from scratch. We'd have to get the approval on the budget to make that. I don't know if I have the manpower to make that internally, so that might have to be external. Then I have to talk to a producer about which company we're going to use. So every decision impacts the greater good. And especially the script with cutscenes and stuff, the interaction between gameplay, you try to make it as seamless as possible. Everyone remembers the old school games where a cutscene would just happen and it didn't matter if your character was sitting down in gameplay. In the cutscene, they'll be riding a bicycle because
they're in totally different clothes.
It didn't matter. But now they try to really go for as much seamlessness as possible. So if they have to decide how are they going to animate the in-game motions and what point do you remove player control to segue into a cutscene position.
Do you even ever relinquish player control, or do you have them somehow?
Exactly.
Right.
RE7 went for something a little different where the cutscenes for the most part take place in the background. And so, but the player, you're still in control, even if it was very minimal, like in the famous dinner scene in RE7. Your player is tied to the chair, but you can still look around and move. But that was because we wanted the players to experience this cutscene. But some of the other things, like the fight scene with Mia, a lot of that was a scripted cutscene. She's doing a scripted event in the background, but you as the player have the choice to keep backing up, duck into a room, try to throw a knife at her or something like that. But her part is still going. So that is kind of more seamless and I would say non-traditional. The traditional ones are more like gameplay, pause to watch this movie. So, yeah, there's all these things that go into it. And then we have to consider the voice recording schedule as well, actor availability, budgets for that. It's just keeping all those balls in the air and trying to make sure everything proceeds smoothly is a challenge.
And then you also have to consider tech, right? Yeah. Because are we going to be doing this as facial ADR? Let's say if we're going, what's ADR, Miguel?
ADR is when you have the scene and then you record the voices to match what's already there in the performance. Now, it can be two ways. Sometimes in the old school way, you would just have motion capture actors who would just do the scene, and then later you would have the voice actors who would match to it. You know, basically in the same way a lot of anime is dubbed stuff. But there's also the other way where you see Hollywood productions do it is they're filming on set, but they don't get the proper recording, or it's because it's an intense scene, people are screaming. So then they get the actor back into the studio, they have the film, they play the film, and the actor matches their performance and says the lines more clearly so they can get good audio quality. So with full performance, that's something we do as well. So the actors on the mocap set are the ones who are also voicing those characters. So they're trying to do as much of the voice work as they're filming the mocap. But, you know, those suits have a lot of Velcro on them. And so as soon as they start touching each other and slapping each other, you have like, because you just build, you know, basically perfunctory sets. You know, it's not a nice set. It's just like
a piece of wood.
Yeah, a piece of wood. This wood is a door. And so the person like banging on the wood to open the door, then that noise gets on the line. So then you have to re-record that later. So they have to dub over their own performance. So that's what the ADR does, which stands for audio.
You know, I don't remember.
I keep forgetting what it stands for.
Really
everyone just says ADR, but it mainly says.
Pete doesn't do ADR, so that's
right. That's right. See,
you don't do ADR, as we know.
Yeah. So I'm gonna look that up while you guys talk. Yeah. But then, of course, there are also different head-mounted cams.
There's different head-mounted cams. There's so many different ways to do it, and you can't say one way is right or not. I know Naughty Dog, they did keyframe animation for their lip flaps. So instead of capturing the actors' facial movements like with these markers on their faces, so then they animate it with the program, they had the animators moving the lips and all the parts by hand.
So it was more close to the actually an animation movie, right?
Exactly. And that takes a lot of work.
That's right. I always forget. It's automatic dialogue replacement.
Automatic dialogue replacement.
Which is not what it is. But that's fine. I forget where it originally came from. But.
Probably way back in the day with Hollywood. Definitely. Right. Something for movies and stuff. But so there's all different ways to do that. You know, casting a game is difficult because when you're casting a game, sometimes you don't have the full long view of the game yet. You don't know what situations the character is going to be in. So usually one of the things I'm charged with is writing audition scripts. So what I try to do is it's just one scene, no longer than 2 to 3 pages, ideally 2 characters. So either they can interact with each other or the person auditioning them can read the other actor's lines. And it's easier to see, instead of just doing a monologue, you see them reacting or leading a scene. And that's what you want. But, you know, something like a Resident Evil game, it's like, well, this character, they're normally calm and confident, but when zombies attack, they become a crybaby. Yeah. So I need to see if I can get all that range of emotions in a 3-minute
I guess
script.
It's difficult to find the right sentence to write.
It's really difficult to just narrow that down because you could write a 15-minute scene, but no actor is going to want to audition that or will even memorize it. They're not going to.
Imagine how many actors you have to get in, and then times 15.
And then there are callbacks. So you're like, we like these 2 actors.
Right.
Let's see. So you cast, say, someone like, in Resident Evil 2, you have Claire. Yeah. Like, we got our Claire. This is her for sure. But Leon, I don't know if I want Pete or Luca to be Leon. So we'll bring back Claire and we'll have her redo the scene with both Pete and you, and then see how that chemistry works. And that's even in an ideal situation. Sometimes we don't have that luxury just for time issues. And then being in Japan, there's always the dreaded time difference. You know,
time difference, and then of course we're limited by how much time we have in the studio. If we're going to do something overseas, if we're using a third-party studio, we only have so much time there. We can only have 1 day, let's say, or 2 days. Yeah. We do have our own mocap studios here, but auditioning, we can't fly actors out. Well, we do ultimately sometimes, but during the audition phase, we're going to have to do it based out of Hollywood or wherever we're doing it.
Yeah, wherever we're doing it from. So we send a small crew there to observe it, or sometimes not even. We just leave it to the, we'll Skype in, or we'll just get the videos back and just watch the audition videos and go from there. So there's not one method that works, and it's more complicated than many people might guess. I guess one complaint, excuse me, you hear is voice actors. People get attached to the voice actors, and how come we don't always use the same voice actor? And a lot of times, well, the infamous scheduling.
Yes.
They're just not available.
The actors are not available.
Yeah, it's happened to us even with the Figs voice recording. Because there's a spaced out time between the first round and the second round. By the time the second round comes around, the original actor is not available. And we have to find a sound-alike to replace them. So it can happen within the same game.
Yes.
Not just and we're not talking about a franchise here over a period of 10 years. This is the same game.
Wow. Especially if a game, like, for example, the recordings are in the summer, for example.
Where no
there's holidays. Because in Japan, I mean, the holidays, of course, are different.
Oh, yeah. We have to work around Christmas, and Thanksgiving's a big one in the States because you lose almost that whole week. Yeah. And that's one we tend to forget about in Japan because unlike Christmas, it's not written on the calendars. That's really an American holiday. And even if we're working with like a studio in London or something like that, they will forget about Thanksgiving too. So, sure. You know, I can tell you one story. Just like the way we offer up red flags and also show the difficulty in these things and where creative clashes with reality. So Resident Evil Revelations 2, one of the main characters is Natalia, who's a 10-year-old girl in the game. So now we have two choices, 10-year-old girl. So do we actually get a child actor, or do we go with an adult woman who can do child's voices? You know, each one has pros and cons. You know, the child actor will sound definitely more like a child, but an adult woman who can do children's voices is a professional, They've been doing it for years, so they would be easier to work with. They understand the lingo, what you need to do for a retake. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do here? So I thought I was just going to be measuring my options there. And then they're like, and maybe she's Hungarian. I'm like, what do you mean she's Hungarian? I'm like, maybe she's from Hungary, like her parents, because that island Terra Grigia, anyone could move there. So maybe her family was from Hungary. I'm like, okay, so she has a Hungarian accent? Yeah. I'm like, that's going to be a tall order to find. You know, it's not like, you know, if we offered $5 million, maybe we could find something like that.
That's a bit egregious.
But yeah, I mean, to find something like that in our time frame, and then if you do work with a child actor, they're under different regulations than regular actors because they can only do it at certain times of the day because they have to attend school. A tutor who helps them with their classes and lessons has to be in attendance to make sure you're not taking advantage of them. You really have to watch your time.
It's like a child actor, basically.
Yeah. And so Natalia is a main character in the game, which means she has ADR for all those cutscenes. She has a fair amount of in-game voices, and she has to do efforts. All the breathing, all the screaming, all the random shouting. So like a monster surprises her. Oh, do we want you to scream 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Even so regular voice actors have issues with efforts, and that's one of the things you're always constantly trying to find the balance in. To do that with a child actress who doesn't have that much experience,
it will be stressful a lot. So you don't know how you will react.
So I said, we lost the Hungarian thing, fortunately. But in the end, we decided to go with an actual child. I think she was actually 13 or 14, so not 10 like the character, which is fine.
She was mature enough.
She was mature enough. She had done a couple things, so she understood stuff. And the voice director was Chris Zimmerman, who's pretty well known in this industry. She does a lot of games and TV and stuff. And she was just really good.
A lot of ADR.
Yeah, a lot of ADR.
Unlike me.
Unlike Pete, still to this day. But yeah, she was really good with her. Was able to coax her and found the way to explain. With the experience, like Yuri Lorenthal, like he's super experienced. So when she says, "I need you to do this thing," he's just like this, and he's like, "And we needed sadder." She's like, "Someone just kicked your dog," and like he knows where to go with that. But with her, we had to walk her through the stages. Yes. Like it wasn't enough to explain the story. She had to walk with her. She's like, "So did you have a math test recently? Like, oh, how'd you do? Like, did you study a lot? Okay, imagine if you showed up at the class and you hadn't studied for the test. Yeah. How would you feel?" "Oh, I'd feel like this." "Okay, let's say the line like that."
Well, having a child actor also increases restrictions because we have to have a guardian there.
The guardian, yeah.
So it adds a bunch of things on top. But yeah, I it all comes down to performance and what you're looking for. So
yes, pro and cons, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that goes into a lot.
It's not like someone just writes a script. Someone says, "I want that actor," and you just go in. They say the line, one take, and you're done.
And put in the game, and done.
The preparation that goes into it. And then you find out, as you found out, after you've done the recording, they've changed the game again.
Yeah, where we have this line along in the localizing section. They changed the script again. We always say.
Yep. So then you have to figure out, well, what are we going to do? Do we have a budget to go and...
Do we have the time?
Because you're using a third-party studio.
Yeah.
So you have to consider what their schedule's like.
Yeah, even if we had the budget and time, are they open?
Right.
Yeah, even contract-wise.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things where hopefully you can just, edit one of the lines you already have or reuse a line from another place, or maybe sometimes you make the decision, we're not going to have a line here anymore.
We can just...
Which is a solution, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to be creative with our solutions.
Yeah.
In approaching a lot of this. And at the end of the day, everyone is working to make the game better, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole goal. So everyone brainstorms, and I think it goes back to what you were speaking about earlier, Luca, and that is that everyone does work together to try to make something the best it can be. And I think that's something that's really great here. Yeah. Sometimes you just want to say to yourself, well, this is it. This is the solution. Let's do this. And it can be frustrating because you have to go through layers. But at the same time, it's always great to know that everyone is going towards the same solutions.
Yes.
It is a consensus-based society, so there's a little bit more that goes into that than there would be, let's say, in Italy. But then at the same time, maybe in Italy, the guy's just going to do whatever he wants, and you find out it's all broken at the end.
It happens. It's not my fault.
I mean, and obviously we're generalizing, but yeah, I think.
But no, it's a good. I mean, localize also from the side of a localizing team. It's nice that everyone. I mean, wants. And sometimes, as you said, sometimes it can be frustrating. Sometimes say why they cannot do this because sometimes, of course, we think of it ourselves, but because we want to make the games better. But sometimes we don't even at the same times, but not because we do on purpose, but we don't consider many things many issues that are on the dev side that we don't even know sometimes.
Yeah, everyone always thinks someone else's job is easier.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter what industry or profession.
Human condition, right?
It's just you think, oh, that looks easy. And it's not as easy, just they can't program this game to do something unique and new out of nowhere without breaking the entire engine. Just like when they come to us and say, can't you say this word? I'm like, no, this phrase does not exist in any language. I can't say it that way. So there's restrictions and you got to work with it.
Now there must be mutual understanding because from us that we need to understand what are the limits, but the limits in terms of time-wise but technology. But on their side, from the dev side, they need to understand that for us, sometimes it's not just translating itself.
Well, you're on the dev side too. I think it's
I mean, sorry, programmers.
Right.
I mean, because you said right. But sometimes, he said you can't make this in this way. Will be easier. Do this. No, actually, if we mix like this, it will be wrong. And we need to find another solution. Yeah. Sometimes
like you might have to make a line appear because in a certain language it's there, so they can't, for whatever reasons, it's too late for them to reprogram and take the line out or whatever it might be. Something as simple as that sometimes causes issues, right?
Yeah, I've seen them. They've cut lines like the variety lines, like the random efforts and stuff, and just went with a set amount just for memory issues in the game. So, there's reasons behind every decision. I mean. I will say that a lot of times there's the version of the game we all fall in love with when we're working on it in the beginning, and you're like, that's the best. And then they start chipping away at it, and the schedule changes, or you don't have the budget for this, or this person can't do that, or someone high up says, nah, I want to do this, so you have to do that. And you start thinking, oh, it's getting worse and worse and worse. But then you realize what you have, working with what you have and trying to make the best of that actually gives you something more to focus on instead of having all the elements.
All the choices.
All right. It's like going to a supermarket, say, make dinner out of this. I'm like, I don't know where to start. But it's like, make a dinner out of what you have in your fridge and your pantry. Okay, this is more focused. I can, you might not be able to make a nice Thanksgiving dinner, but you can make a good dinner based on what you have because you're now more focused on those things.
I think to summarize what you're saying in very simple terms, it's restrictions help to create creativity and a good product. But on top of that, I think that the main point you made is that you had an idea in your head. Mm-hmm. You had an idea. And as you get closer and closer and deeper, you're so married to the idea you had in your head and what you thought it would be, that any changes, they start to affect you. Yeah. And sometimes, unfortunately, in a negative way. But at the end of the day, we release something and it is the best it could have been in most cases, right? Because you had to work with all of these restrictions and different pieces. And that's what development is about, right? You have this idea, you have the director's vision, and you're trying to drive the director's vision and go forth with that. And there's so many moving parts that you have to work within the parameters that you're given. Yeah. So I think that kind of summarizes what you're trying to say. It's not that, okay, I'm only going to give you a carrot, make a soup. It's more you have the carte blanche and you have everything at your disposal right now, and as things go forward you're starting to realize we have time constraints and we have constraints on top of this, and everyone is working together for the common goal.
I mean, it's like certain movies, like when a director, you see like what the director wanted for that scene, but like they didn't have time or whatever, or the studio said you had to cut it down or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you're used to the version you've seen, and you can't think of it any other way. And then you see what the director originally envisioned. You're like, that doesn't work. That makes the scene too long. It's good as it is now, but that's what they wanted. And so when I see the game out there, I'm like, oh man, there was an extra 5 seconds in this scene, or this character used to be here, but no one knows that. They see what they get, and to them, the result is good.
Exactly.
They're enjoying it.
But because
that's what makes you a creative, right? Because you have that vision in your head now, and you're trying to achieve and work on your vision. And so there's a level of frustration there as a creative. I totally get that. That makes sense.
But it's also we are sometimes we are super critical about something.
Of course,
but this is a good
guys
thing.
Are good, and you're trying to make things better. So you're always trying to improve yourself as well.
Yeah, we're hard on ourselves. Way too hard on ourselves.
But that's sometimes we are way too hard on ourselves. But I think it's a good thing as well because it always stimulates. Yourself, right? Yeah, it always stimulates you want to give your best. Right?
Yeah, you don't want to settle for like, okay. No, it's good enough.
Whatever.
If I
mean, there are some times that you want to say
that. Sometimes you're just too tired. But if there are times when I'm feeling a little frustrated about it, I'm like, well, at least I know I still care and I'm trying to make things better. So.
Even if the result is not like you wanted or you hoped, sometimes it's at least I did my best to make this result that it was different, but to make as good as I could.
Well, a certain level of frustration means that you care.
Yeah, of course.
Otherwise,
that's for sure.
You're always happy, and you're just like, oh, whatever, it's cool.
Yeah.
You know, I think, in a perfect world, that would be amazing. That means you're getting everything, but usually there's so many pieces, right? So, yeah. Anything you want to add about the figs process? I mean, everything Miguel talked about kind of has some sort of connection to figs, except for the fact that they're not mocapping, right? Because the mocap's already done by the time you get it.
So and the thing is also that for fig, I mean, for English, American is not any easier, but is only one language. For figs, we have to deal with 4 different languages.
And then there's more on top of that, depending on the title again, sometimes too, right?
Yes,
some Asian languages,
of course. And for figs, we do almost every time we do we assist the voice recording here. Right. But the voice recording are made in Europe,
right?
In different studio for each country. So during there's a period of voice recording, you see us. I mean, you stay late sometimes, and for the time difference, because of the time difference, and in each room connected with the studio, and try to give them because I mean. Is directions, because the actors, okay, they can have the videos, they can have the script, the direction, but the problem is that sometimes they just don't know enough, even for how good, because we have especially for this last project or Resident Evil 2, we had super good voice director.
Yeah.
For each languages, but sometimes it's not enough. So you must be there.
Yeah, they're not as
well. They're not going to know the game as well as you.
Yeah, they're not going to know the game.
It's just not possible,
yes,
right? Because they're not playing it every day. They're
not
looking through it every day like you guys are.
Yes.
They're not finding all of the small idiosyncrasies and intricacies that are buried in the game.
Or sometimes you want just 2 takes different from the same sentence for the same lines. So you want 2 different intonation, and then you will decide later sometimes,
right?
Because you know already that there's not much time sometimes, that you don't have like a pickup session.
Yeah.
Which is another session basically for
you're taking
the voice
insurance,
recording.
Right?
Yeah. you never know.
Right. Yeah, that's smart. If you can do it.
Yeah. If you have the chance, many times, and the majority of the times, the actors and the studio are super kind and available with all of us. So because actually many of them like enjoy the games as well.
Right.
So they say, hey, if this works for the games to make it better, I will totally be available for that. So this is also a good thing, because you can take part actively also in the voice recording process.
Yeah.
And sometimes the problem is that the many lines that you have there are not only cutscenes. We also have like in-game stuff, which are voices triggered only when you play. And the actor at that point, we don't have them, since the majority of the times the game is not complete yet.
Right.
The actor can have the cutscenes or a rough version of the cutscenes, which is okay, but I don't know which part that sentence is played. So since you played the game, because the actor don't, you already know which part will play these lines. For the actor, without your direction, I mean, they have a little bit of the script, but they will say, hey, what I'm in front of something.
What level of excitement am I at? Or how far am I from the person?
Yes, how far
am I shouting?
Yeah.
There's so many little things that you need to consider in the game space, because it is constantly changing, right?
Yes,
it's not static like a film.
Yes.
Just things like you don't even know which route the player will take, especially if depending on the level of freedom accorded to the player, but also the state of the game itself. Like, we don't know if they're going to walk past this room or not. So can we get 2 versions?
Yes.
One if they walk past the room, or one if the room isn't in the game anymore. Because, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So it's still, there are lots of unknown points, unknown parts. And the presence, the attendance of a localizer is fundamental, I think.
It's like having the scriptwriter on set.
Yeah. And sometimes, for example, even
even more integral, right?
Yeah, some voices doesn't, some intonation, some expression doesn't work in your language,
right,
and in your culture. So you need to say, hey, we cannot scream in this situation, for example, right? So you need to adapt because you know the situation there.
Cool.
Which I always tend, also said the other day, I always tend to, this localization is not translation.
That's very true. Because if it were just a word for word, you'd have pretty awkward situations.
Itself. Sometimes
but there are different theories on that as well. This is your take. Do you guys have anything to add before we wrap up today?
You always want more time and more money.
Is that to me?
But I mean, you try to do the best you can with what you have. I think
don't you sound down?
No. Sorry, I'm tired. Sorry, business trip last week. So
and you're taking one tomorrow.
And I'm taking one tomorrow, typhoon willing.
It's a hope.
But it's just everyone's always working their best to try and make things better. And, some people have a creative decision you don't agree with, and that's how it works. I mean, there's a lot of compromise involved all across the board, but everyone usually comes together in the end because they might think at some point your job is easier than theirs, but at the end, as you're working and they see you working with them, they realize everyone is working equally hard, just on different things. And so they try to bridge that with some kind of understanding. And at first, some people can even be demanding. They're like, it's got to be this, this, and this. And so it takes time to walk them through, this is why that's not going to work, or this is why you won't hit that quality mark if you do it this way. And then you get to have a discussion about what you will do and how you are going to make it work. So,
and everyone has that discussion, from the audio designer to the level designer to the modelers out there. Everyone's having
to the marketing people, the promotions people, everything. QA too. I mean, they only have a limited amount of people. How can what parts of the game do you want us to focus on?
And they work a lot. No, but at the same, sometimes you have some sudden request that sometimes for you makes no sense. But the problem is that sometimes at the first you say, why they're asking this? But if you think, there are those people that have been asked as is a chain, right? So there are.
So that's exactly why, and this is cliche, but it's true, why communication is so important, right? If you're because they're probably tired, super busy, got all these things coming in, things are on fire, they come to you and they're like, hey, do this. And they're not going to explain why. They're just going to say, hey, do this. But you just want that little piece, right? But that's okay. You can ask that. So, hey, so how did this happen? But what happens is people generally look at that and go, what the F? I can't believe this is happening. And you take that tone, and that doesn't help, right? Everyone's got their little pieces.
Especially in crunch time. Everyone is stressed.
And it's easy to escalate, right? Somebody starts complaining. You have, one bad apple, and then things start to spread. So
of course, because it just triggers something that the whole office, basically, all the other people in your team, they feel the same. So
what have we learned today?
What did we learn? Well, that's the personally speaking, is a really challenging job.
In a good way.
In a good way, of course. And
I don't know, it could be a bad way.
No. For me, in a good way. We need a lots of mutual understanding with all the people that you're working with, though. Because you have to think that everyone wants to make the game, the project better. It's not only you.
Right.
It's not only you that you care a lot, or there's someone who cares less. Maybe there will be someone who cares less, but everyone cares about that. Right. So that's the most important thing. So as you rightly said, communication is more the important thing. So even if there are some in stress period, crunch time, you should find the right way to say something and the right way to ask.
It's not always easy.
Mm-hmm. But no, sometimes I'm making many mistakes myself, but I'm learning at the same time.
Yeah. I guess that's why you need, if you're going to be a leader like yourself, that's one of the things you need to focus on, right?
Yeah,
Part of the communication.
Totally. Which is the best thing is that to have a nice team like we have, that everybody can trust each other. Mm-hmm. So I think that if you because especially in this job, in this work industry, you need teamwork. Because
absolutely.
Everything is you're
interconnected. It's all interconnected. Right. Yes. You can't do it alone.
Right. And you need to trust, because you need to trust, and you need to show that people can trust you at the same time. Right. Because otherwise, it's kind of you break, like you see, the mechanism. And the people that not trust, okay, don't trust the guy. I want to do by myself, and it becomes an isolated part. The part becomes isolated, and it cannot work that much.
Yeah,
because it cannot work smooth as it could be. Actually, that's the thing.
Any closing words, Miguel?
Not only a good team, but having a good boss, right?
No, not like you.
Wait, Luca, who's your boss?
Miguel.
Sorry, I had to slip that in. But it's fun, it's challenging, but there's a lot of great people at Capcom, and they're always trying to make good games, and just keep that in mind when you're playing it. No one goes out of their way. This is said about any game, not just Capcom games, but no one goes out of the way to make a bad game. Everyone's trying to make it and fun for the people who want to play.
You will play this.
QA has to play it. The players have the choice. So, and everyone here is a gamer, and they love playing games. So they have that in their minds while they're making their games. Is this going to be fun for someone like me to play later? So
and there are different tastes out there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We just hope we're doing what we can and doing it right. So with that, you guys have any place we can find you? Do you want to give out your Twitter handle or your social media presence?
Okay.
You don't have to.
I have a Twitter, but actually using that.
You want to keep private? That's fine.
Yeah, I would like to.
That's okay.
They'll find you. They'll find you.
Sometimes. If you have Miguel or Pete one, sometimes you see some thread starting, so maybe you will find me.
Okay.
So,
Miguel.
You can find me on Twitter at Miguel E Corti, and usually I'm tagged in something that either Pete or Matt has posted, so you don't even have to search for my name. I'll be in one of those threads, as always. So,
and I am at P Fabiano, and you can find us at the Capcom Dev1 account, which is Dev1 _ not under bar like Matt likes to say, official. That's DEV1, the number 1 _ official. Thanks again for listening, and who wants to take us out? I don't even know what that means. Let's let the music take us out.
Then we'll see you in the video games.
The video games. And I don't know. I'm not good. I'm not good at stuff.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Again,
thank you.
Remember to subscribe and give us your feedback if you can. And a shout out to all the fans who have actually written to us and said that you enjoy what you're hearing. And of course, constructive criticism is always welcome as well. Thanks, guys, and take care.